Welcome to Double Take, where we review the latest releases and the games that passed you by, all to let you know if they're worth your time and your money. Double Take, one game, two opinions, let's go. Today we're reviewing Spider-Man. This is Vast Empires and Scorch. Let's get started.
Can I just say how much I like that intro? I
Is
re
it
I
okay?
really like that intro. Yeah, it's good.
All right. So we have three review categories for our games. That's gameplay, production, and story. We're starting with gameplay.
Yeah.
Scorch, let's get it going.
All right. So this is a superhero game. So you're gonna want some superhero-y gameplay, right? And they delivered that in spades as far as Spider-Man goes. I really feel like they got the gameplay down to the point where you really feel Spider-Man-y, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
makes
The
perfect sense.
Yeah, the way the web slinging and all that, and your ability to web up bad guys, and then, your incredible kung fu moves that come out of nowhere sometimes. It all ends up being a very cohesive kind of feeling that really unifies a universe around a character like comics are wont to do. And I feel like that's a
Yeah.
great thing.
The developers really went out of their way to make sure that you felt like you were immersed in the world as Spider-Man. Any surface you could cling to, you could crawl over, you could web sling yourself to, or through, which is one of the things that like blew my mind the first time I was web slinging through the city.
Yeah, all
Um,
those water
and
towers that you could shoot yourself through.
yes, I was
That'd be
aiming
so
somewhere else, but
cool.
I just happened to hit and just slung myself through the water tower. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am the coolest gamer ever. And so
Achoo!
they really give you that experience. And what I love the most about it is when the game starts, you can do the majority of your move sets are already there, like from the beginning. So the unlockables that you have as you're progressing Spider-Man through the story are there to augment what you can already do. So at the very beginning, when you're fighting your first boss, you felt like a complete, or I felt like a complete badass.
Yeah,
Um, and that feeling just persisted and grew stronger as I continued through the world.
yeah.
It was great.
They definitely
So,
had like a learning curve in as far as what you could do because in the beginning you don't really know what your limits are or anything like that. And they do a really good job of ramping up both enemy difficulty and the feeling of you being more and more of a badass as you learn things. You don't have to lean on it or anything unless you're playing like the super hard difficulties, but it makes you feel like you are improving along with the story of the game as it goes on.
yeah.
And I really like that feeling.
I also enjoyed the open world and how that also led to your progression. So the game is like primarily sticks you in Manhattan, and you are going through the map, unlocking different areas of the map. And as you unlock the map, then you start unlocking different side missions, um, quests, and challenges on each section of the map or in each district of Manhattan. Um, and then they take you to different places so you can learn how to like navigate the map. You see different sites in the city, and they also integrate like a lot of the Marvel universe into the
Mm-hmm.
game. It was just, it was a lot to take in, but it didn't feel unmanageable either.
No, even the sheer amount of collectibles that are in this game, because there's a lot, and there's a
Oh yeah,
lot
there's a
of
lot.
different kinds of collectibles. I think there are 55 backpacks to collect or something like that.
Oh yeah,
And then there are a ton of pictures that you can take of landmarks in Manhattan. And I
pigeons
have
that you
I
can collect.
pigeons. I have to mention how much of a badass you feel like when you're swinging through the air, see a photograph opportunity whip out your camera in midair, take the picture,
Yes.
and then swing on without even touching the ground.
Yes,
It feels
you are
amazing.
Spider-Man. Yes,
Yeah,
that is so true. Like I can't say this enough, but they nail that feeling of 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 like freedom and mobility and being able to go anywhere and do almost anything in this game. So
yeah.
much fun.
Did you have any problems with like combat or targeting enemies or anything like that?
So there were some sections of the game where the camera became a little bit of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Specifically when you are like fighting multiple enemies, or you find yourself like in a corner in like one of the mission base or the excuse me the combat base missions,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I would leap over someone and then the camera would just totally hit like or clip into a black spot and I couldn't see what I was doing until I moved out of that corner.
Yeah.
And that got my butt in trouble more than a couple of times. So
Yeah.
finally, I was like, just stay out of the corners. Just stay out of the corners, girl.
I found that so there are two things that I have to pick at, and that one is that when you're in the middle of combat, it's kind of hard to uh, target who you want right off the bat.
Mm.
I found that especially difficult when the Sable trucks drove up and they had those turrets on top. There's this
Oh yeah.
certain range that you have to get into before you can target the turrets to break them off. And you don't know that range, and they don't tell you what that range is either. You just kind of have to wander around in the area where you think that range is until the prompt pops up. And that made it kind of awkward to try and get rid of things that you can't necessarily like defeat or web down.
Mhm.
And another thing that occasionally got me in trouble is it's partially my fault, admittedly, it's partially my fault that when you are swinging through the city and you accidentally kind of web yourself into the wrong direction or like get your web stuck on a skyscraper that you've already passed, so you're just kind of hanging there in the air and you've lost all momentum.
Oh yeah.
I found that a little annoying at times, but it wasn't nearly enough to make me mad at the whole traversal aspect of it.
Yeah. I will piggyback on that and say that I was rerunning a couple of challenge or taskmaster challenges today to get some extra tokens so I can unlock these last few suits. And I was redoing a bomb mission, and it was one of the earliest ones, and it's pretty simple. And that distance that you have to be for the prompt to register to pick up an item, it did stick me a couple of times because I would go into slow motion, think I would be close enough, and start hitting R1 and L1, but the prompt wouldn't be there, so I couldn't pick up the bomb until like I had already fell to the ground and
Yeah,
wasted precious seconds.
that
I did
means
not get
everything.
gold, is what I'm trying to say.
It
I did
means
not get gold.
everything in those challenges to be able to do all of that stuff fluidly.
And I was so close. I was like at it was gold was like 12,000. I was like at 1125 or something like that, you know.
Dang, that was close. I don't think I ever got that close when it came to challenges. When they first popped up, the first thing that they gave you were like get rid of the bomb challenges, and they give you a
Mhm.
timer, and I hate timers. I hate them. It's just one of those little personal things that I don't like in video games. And I was very worried that that was all the challenges were going to be, but they were not. There was a nice, delightful mix of all kinds of things that you could do in challenges, which really made me happy.
Yeah, and I feel like that also kind of reflects, going back to the gameplay, that reflected the developers giving you the opportunity to excel at Spider-Man the way that you want to. So if you were all about the web slinging, then they definitely had web slinging challenges where you're following things in the air, you're dropping down to pick stuff up, you have to get the timing perfectly to get across the challenge correctly. If you're really into combat, they had copious amounts of combat,
Oh
so you can
yeah.
get down there and get your fighting on. And then they also had what the parts that I really enjoyed that I didn't expect I would enjoy that much were the puzzle game segments, which I really liked.
Yeah, they
And
were
they
cool.
and I feel like they did a good job of putting them in there, but sparsely. So if you're not into puzzle games, it's not going to take you too much out of the gameplay. I mean, they weren't too terrible to figure out, but they were a
Yeah.
fun little change up in the gameplay, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. I've
Oh,
what? Hmm.
go ahead. No, no, no. I was gonna say, speaking of the change up, the different missions that you have outside of Spider-Man, but you can go first.
Well, I was gonna mention a little something about the puzzles that I liked that they had them there and they didn't necessarily make you do them. There were a few times where you had to, but those are kind of the simple ones. And then they said, essentially, they told you, well, if you like that, here are some more puzzles that you can do as Peter Parker if you want. Like, here they are. But you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. And then you just went about your business,
Yeah,
and I really enjoyed that. Like, I this might be the first game that I platinum. Um,
really.
I'm not close there. I think I'm like close to 90%, maybe even 91%
Hmm.
complete with the game, and I'm at like 60 something completion with within the PlayStation trophy tracker.
Okay.
But I can see myself actually doing the stuff they want me to do to complete it because I've enjoyed myself so much.
Yeah. Well, I have platinum the game, and I'm here to tell you that it's a pretty easy platinum if you enjoy the game. So there's not
Mm,
anything that's absolutely impossible to do. They don't make you play on the hardest difficulty. They don't make you get gold on every single challenge because that would make me pull my hair out, God of War, you know. But let's move on to something that also made the game very notable, and it was all of its acting talent and all of the acting that was in it, because this is
Yes.
very
So that brings
noteworthy.
it is very noteworthy, and this brings us into our production category because we know that's important.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
time and the effort that goes into the voice acting and the cinematics, and um, the little the little things that actually bring a game to life.
Yeah. I feel like they had to motion capture every single person that you ever talk to because the way that they portray people's faces and people's bodies in the game is very human. And that's
Yeah,
kind of hard to do on a digital frame. And
yeah,
that's something that really pulls the feeling of the game together that you're at one time all like really superhuman and doing superhumany things, but also bringing you back to the feeling that you're like you're a guy, you're some person, and you have persony things that make you a person.
no, but I totally get where you're coming from with that because um, in the cutscenes, and there are quite a bit of them. Like once you get further into the story, there's some emotional range that comes into the game,
Oh yeah.
and so like at the beginning, the cutscenes are there to like excite you and amaze you, and get you into the frame of mind that you're Spider-Man, that you're there to kick some ass and to save some lives and to quit while you're at it.
Hmm.
And then as you progress and you get to see Peter Parker outside of the suit, interacting with the people that he cares about, interacting with his family, his friends, and his exes. And you actually see the facial expressions and hear the emotion that comes out of the voices. It was really well done,
Yeah.
extraordinarily well done. And like we're in an age right now where it gets better and better, and there are some like really high standards that are set by other games like The Last of Us and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But this being a video game for a superhero is usually a little bit more lighter fare, but they did a great job of bringing that emotion home.
Yeah. they made you feel for these characters. And in like a comic book game where there's superheroes running around all over the place, and it's traditionally a very low risk setting where you don't really have to invest that much emotion with the characters. You know, the good guy's going to win and the bad guy's going to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
It made you feel like invested, and
Mm,
it was really nice to see.
yeah. I think that can bring us into the story, and I'm going to do like a blanket spoiler warning right here because I'm so excited about the story that I'm going to let something slip. I'm going to let things slip. I knew I was going to do it, so I'm just not even going to worry about it. At this point in time, spoiler alert is on. Don't listen, just skip ahead to
We'll
our
put,
final thoughts.
we'll put like spoiler warning in the video somewhere, and we'll have it up until we finish the spoilery bits, which will probably be like now until close to the end of the video. So, you know, just be ready to skip forward, but continue.
All right, but the story, I had to sit back and ask myself, am I so impressed because the story is very good, uh, or am I so impressed because I had typical video game superhero story like expectations, and so when they exceeded those, it seemed even better by comparison. Um, and I'm here to say, after thinking about it for a couple of hours, that no, the story actually is just that good. If it had been a film
Hmm.
or like a television show or something like that, I think it would have held up on its own. Like it's a good cinematic story that they're telling in this game, or interactive story that they're telling in this game, I should say.
Yeah. Did you ever see Spider-Man Homecoming? Like the most recent Spider-Man that came out?
So I haven't seen it yet,
Okay. Okay.
and I'm actually really surprised, but I'm also not surprised because I feel like I'm a little marveled out.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So I saw Thor Ragnarok. I saw Black Panther, two of my favorite, like absolute favorite. But between that time period, I was a little marveled out. So I actually haven't seen like the most recent Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I hadn't seen Spider-Man, and there's one more I hadn't seen either. But I'll get around to them because I enjoy those films. I just needed to take a break from Marvel for a little bit.
Yeah, that's really understandable. But I was gonna say that their movie did a really good job of humanizing their characters too, and it made the story better. And I think you see that a lot in this game. You feel for even like the bad guys.
Oh yeah.
You feel for them like having to do things that they don't necessarily want to do, and you can you can see where they're coming from. They're bad guys, and you can't really condone their behavior, but you can definitely see where they're coming from. And to
I
have bad guys that are relatable makes it really nice as a story. They did that really well with Thanos.
yeah.
Yeah.
I I think that spoiler, we already said this, but I think that starting out with where they put Peter and Dr. Octavius at the beginning of the story and at the end of the story is probably one of the best sympathetic villain portrayals I've seen and or read in a long time. Like a lot of people try and do it, but they don't they they kind of fall into the category of, oh, he's just like me, you should sympathize with him, instead of showing, oh, he's just like me, I can sympathize with him, but these are the consequences of his actions, and this is why, even though you can sympathize with this character, or even empathize with this character, or identify with this character, this behavior is wrong. Like, that part of the equation gets muddled, I feel, a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But they did such a good job of that in this game. And I was just like weeping and a moaning through it. Like, oh, Doc Ock, no, because he's
So
he's
You're
so
such a good
engaging.
person. Your virtues are so awesome. Why did you
Yes,
do this?
yes, I was right there with Peter at the end. I was like, no, I don't want to. I want to save you too, Doc Ock. But and that's another part of the story that as it unfolded, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally believed him when he told me that he was working on this armor for AIM. He lied to me. I thought that they were building up towards the Doc Ock suit. Like, so this is
Yeah.
I feel like I'm usually pretty good about story, and junior detective or whatever. But I see things coming. I read a lot. I write a lot. I know the universal storytelling like language, right? Um, but this one actually fooled me. I thought that I wouldn't see Doc Ock until the sequel because I thought this entire game I saw them building, you know, a story in the background about Harry, a story in the background about Norman, a story, and I thought that Dr. Octavius' story was like a background story,
Yeah.
and that you would see these characters in the sequel game.
Well,
But no.
you spend so much of the game trying to defeat Mr. Negative, and like right when you think you're about to triumph, Mr. Negative is like, "No, I'm not working by myself." And all of that like leads up to the downfall of Octavius in a way that's like really cool. Like you can see all the little threads come together, but you don't
Mhm.
notice the threads while you're like surfing the wave. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm. And so that I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so impressed with the storytelling in this game because it got me. It
Yeah.
got me, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, you don't get me. I know what's going on. I figured out who the killer was like when the game started.
Yeah.
But they got me and they pulled me in so deeply, and so when everything did unfold, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see this coming. I thought it
Did
was going to be in
you
the next game.
did you have because this is actually what hit me more than Dr. Octavius is Harry Osborn,
Oh
all of
man,
that.
no, no, I did not see that coming. I
That
thought,
that was depressing for me.
yes.
Definite super villain like style right there that I didn't see at all because that was hardly ever explained. They like Peter Parker and Mary Jane are always were always talking through the entire story about, "Oh, I hope Harry's having a nice time in Europe," because that's the plot
Mhm.
that's the thread that they're following. They think that Harry Osborn, their childhood friend, is in Europe for treatment for something.
Mhm. And then honestly, I don't know if this is a knock to that idea or not, but you have the research station missions, and you're
Yeah.
having all of this, their messages, and they really clearly state that they're messages from Harry um, to Peter. But I was just thinking he sounded fine overall in the messages. I just didn't suspect anything. They
Yeah.
totally got me.
Little did you know that he recorded all of that before any of this took place.
Mhm.
It, they pull it off well. They pulled it off well.
They pull it off well. And then here's another thing that I really enjoyed, and this kind of ties back into the gameplay aspect. Typically, if I'm in a video game centered around a character that I enjoy, I don't normally like doing off-character missions. Like the only other game that I can think where I was okay with it was with the Sly Cooper series. As the game progressed, you didn't just
Hmm.
play as Sly anymore; you played as his other friends. Um, and you do this in Spider-Man. You get a chance to do a couple of missions, not too many, not enough to wear me out, I don't think, or to wear the gamer out. But you get to play as Mary Jane, and you get to play as Miles.
Hmm.
And a couple of those missions were really tense.
Yeah, they were. They made you feel like you were in danger a lot because, like, you have the information that you are just some normal person. You don't have Spider-Man-y powers. Then, duh, duh, duh.
Mhm.
But like when people catch you, that's it. You're done. And
Mhm.
you really wanted to plot your way through things cautiously, and it made that feeling of caution really like a lot better than
Yeah.
yeah. You get what I'm saying.
No, I do, and it was they were some really good and powerful moments in the game. And I also thought it was a really good way, again, going back to the story, of making you feel for not only Peter Parker, but the people around him.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm not always with the romance because a lot of the times I don't like how it's written.
Hmm.
But I was feeling Mary Jane and Peter in this story, and I was feeling the interactions that Peter had with Miles,
Hmm.
like kind of coming in as that like big brother slash mentor figure. They had some really good scenes
Yeah,
between them,
definitely.
and so like in the moment when Miles actually uses Peter or Spider-Man's advice and like punches that guy, like I was like, oh, that's so good. That's
Yeah.
so good. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just take a moment to ask Insomniac for a little side mission where you play as Aunt May just helping people out at Feast? Can I do that?
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think that would have been like fun. I think it would. Yeah. Oh, so final thoughts on this game. What do you
Final
think?
thoughts. I definitely think that this game is worth your time and your money. If you haven't picked it up, or if you're waiting just to see what the DLC situation is going to be like, I totally understand it. But regardless, you should get this game. You should play this game. It is a wonderful experience, and it's probably the most fun action adventure game that I have played since Horizon Zero Dawn. What I really enjoyed about this is how the developers, the writing team, everybody came together and they subverted my expectations for the game, for the story, for the character interactions, and for Spider-Man himself. I fell in love with Spider-Man in this game. I've always liked him. I've always been a fan. I've watched the cartoon, like I've seen the movies and all that kind of stuff. But I fell in love with this version of Peter Parker in his universe, and that takes a lot to get me over that deeply. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree on most bits with Vast here. I think this is a pretty good game. It's very well built for an open world game. It does not have a whole lot of bugs. I hardly ever encountered anything that was absolutely like game breaking or uh like immersion destroying or anything like that. It was put together very well. It was a very solid experience. The only thing that I would really have to say, and this is it's going to sound like it's coming out of left field,
Uh-oh.
especially from all of the things that we've spoken about so far, is that this game we all had high expectations for it, right? We saw cool stuff out like at the various expos. We saw all of the trailers, we saw all the bad guys, and we had this expectation of what this game was going to be. And when it came out, it delivered on all of these expectations. And we live in a world where when it delivers on everything that you think the game should be, you are not as impressed with it after you put it down. And that's kind of where I'm at.
What?
Yeah, I don't get me wrong, it's a really good game. You should definitely play it, but I personally was not nearly as impacted by it because it hit all of those points so well. It it hit the rubric, but it didn't catch me nearly as much as say God of War did or Horizon Zero Dawn did or The Last of Us did. It's a really good
Hmm.
game and I think it's worth your $60 on the outset, but it it didn't grab me as much as the other heavy hitters in its category for me.
Okay, that's fair, and that's why we have Take Two here because sometimes those opinions are dissenting. I just feel like I need to hop in and say, not to compare it to the other games, but I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling like it exceeded those expectations. It could be because my expectations are, like I said on the outset, that they were kind of low or managed expectations. And so when I went in and I had the different set pieces that they did, some of your boss battles in, like one boss battle you're in the middle of a building, and then another boss battle you're, hanging on the back of a helicopter, and then another boss battle you're in a strange fugue state and you're fighting off negative thoughts. Like, I just felt like it progressed in such a way that um, that every expectation I had for it was just knocked out and knocked out the park. But I can see if you're comparing it to some of the other heavy hitters that came out, then because it's a lighter, overall lighter IP.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just like in comic canon, like Spider-Man's probably the angstiest dude in the world in terms of like everything that's happened to him. But like in terms of, this story, it's not as heavy as some of the other ones. I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, but I can see it.
Well, I have to put this disclaimer out there that I've played a fuck ton of video games. I
Yep.
This is the media that I consume is video games. And I am part of the jaded crowd, you know? I
Mhm.
come from the perspective of already having all of these preconceived notions about video games that haven't come out yet. I keep them reined in and inside, bottled up as much as I possibly can. But it leaks out every once in a while, and sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. And this was on closer to when it was right.
Mhm. No, that's like it is perfectly fair. And again, this is why we have Take Two, so our opinions can align and then collide.
Yeah. One last thing. Do you think, because there's going to be like another Spider-Man game, because this game is, pretty good, are you going to be playing as Miles? Do you think you're going to be playing as Miles?
Oh, we have to play as Miles. So I don't. We're still in the spoiler zone. I'm kind of curious what inspirations they're taking in this game, because in the DC universe where Miles, or one of the DC universes where Miles is Spider-Man, there is no Peter Parker. And so I'm wondering if that is going to be some kind of transition. Also, this year, the film Into the Spider-Verse, which stars Miles Morales, is coming out. So I wonder if there's going to be some kind of like transition where Miles becomes the main character of the series, and maybe he's working to get Peter back. Let me just put it like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I want to eventually have a game where I can play as Spider-Gwen. I think that'd be fun.
Me too. I Look, they were just tossing everyone out in this game. I
They
thought we
really
would
were.
see Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, nope. Nope. You got Black Cat, but you did not get Spider-Gwen.
Mm-mm. Yep.
Well, I
So,
think that about does it for our review, don't you think?
no, I think that's it. We have come to the end of Take Two. This has been DerNami Gaming. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this review, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And you can always find us on all of the social media sites, DerNami Gaming. We'll see you next time.
Bye.